Next reading is working capital management, and there are about 40 plus questions in this reading. Which of the following most accurately represents the cash conversion cycle? Cash conversion cycle is equal to average days of receivable plus average days of inventory. How many days do you hold your inventory? And from this, you need to deduct your accounts payable turnover. Given right here, average days of receivable plus average days of inventory less average days of payable. This is called cash conversion cycle, and that is your right answer. But if you're required to calculate the operating cycle is simply the sum of these two. Average days of receivable, average days of inventory. That's your operating cycle. If from operating cycle you deduct your average days of payable, it will give you the cash conversion cycle, that is C. Next, which of the following sources of credit would an analyst most likely associate with the borrower of the lowest credit quality? Which of these sources of finance you as an analyst would consider to be of lowest quality? First, committed line of credit. Committed line of credit is given to those borrowers who are credit worthy. Revolving line of credit is also like committed line of credit, but this is for a longer period. So it means committed line of credit is like an overdraft with a certain ceiling, like maybe $3 million. This is the overdraft limit. This is called committed line of credit outside US. In the US, it's called committed line of credit. And revolving line of credit is like committed line of credit, but it is for a longer period that can be rolled over to many years into the future. So committed line of credit, it's a good quality source of finance. Revolving line of credit is good as well, but uncommitted line of credit, as the name suggests, firm with lower credit quality, those firms, they're not good credit, they may have an uncommitted line of credit, which means the line of credit that has no guarantee from the banker. Banker may refuse to pay funds in the future or may refuse to give this service in the future. So if the company has uncommitted line of credit, this is the one that is riskier. So this will be the one with the lowest credit quality, borrower with the lowest credit quality, uncommitted line of credit. That makes B to be the correct option. Next, assume that 30 days commercial paper security has a holding period yield of 0.8%. So holding period yield is given as 0.80, the bond yield equivalent for this security. We have a formula to calculate the bond equivalent yield. It is equal to holding period yield times 365 divided by maturity days, which in this case are 30 days. You'll simply plug in the numbers. Holding period yield is 0.8% multiplied by 365 upon 30. If you simplify, you should get your result, and it's 9.73. 9.73%, so that makes B to be the correct option. B it is. A high cash conversion cycle. What is cash conversion cycle? We just discussed. Cash conversion cycle is your account receivable turnover in days, your inventory turnover in days, and minus your accounts payable turnover in days. This is called your cash conversion cycle. If this is longer, if it takes more days to convert your cash, more times for account receivables, more time for inventory to turn, and little time you pay your accounts payable quickly, so resultantly your cash conversion cycle will be longer. So a high cash conversion cycle suggests that the company's investment in working capital, you hold more account receivables, you hold more inventory for more number of days, and you pay your payables quickly. Let's say if you hold your inventory for 60 days, your inventory is turned in 70 days, and you pay your suppliers within 10 days. What does it mean? Your cash conversion cycle is 120 days. And it suggests that you have significant, substantial investment in receivables and inventory. So we can say that if the cash conversion cycle is longer, if it's high, the company has too high investment in working capital. A cash conversion cycle that is too high means that the company has excessive investment in working capital. And when we say working capital, that is your account receivables and your inventory. Next, so that makes B to be the correct option, too high. Next, A 91-day treasury bill has a holding period yield of 1.5%. What is the annual yield of this T-bill on bond equivalent basis? We just discussed the formula. Bond equivalent yield is equal to holding period yield, that is 1.5%, multiplied by 365 divided by days to maturity. If you simplify this arrangement, you will get your final result, and it's 6.02%. That makes C to be the correct option. Which yield measure is the most appropriate for comparing companies' investments in short-term securities? We may have different types of short-term securities. So in order to compare them, when you compare things, you have to bring them on some common basis. So this is one of the common basis, bond equivalent yield. We can use this formula to convert our commercial papers, our T-bills, any other investment that is in short term. So we can convert the return into bond equivalent yields, and then accordingly we can compare which of these is a better option. So remember, when evaluating the performance of short-term securities, in order to compare each other, we convert their returns into bond equivalent yields, and then we decide which is the better one. So that makes C to be the correct option. Next, an example of secondary source of liquidity. Firms have two types of liquidities, two types of sources of finance. One is called primary and secondary. When we say primary sources of liquidity means the ready cash balances, the short-term funds we can get from bankers, like line of credit, like revolving line of credit, like trade credit from our suppliers. These are primary sources of liquidity. When the company is in trouble, these primary sources are not available. No short-term financing, no credit from the suppliers, no bank's line of credit. Then we need to resort to secondary source of liquidity, and they are bad, by the way. Secondary source of liquidity, they are bad for the company. Like you are in a position where you are unable to make payment to your bankers, your debts are maturing, so you renegotiate your debt arrangements, renegotiate your debt contracts with the bank in order to gain liquidity. This is secondary source. You sell your surplus assets in order to raise liquidity, secondary source. And you are in so much trouble that you file for bankruptcy under the US law. There are two laws, Chapter 7 and Chapter 11. That is reorganization and bankruptcy. They were first studied in CMA Part 2 Corporate Finance. They have been removed. Liquidation, that is bankruptcy, and reorganization. So a business is in trouble. Business can file for protection under Chapter 7, under Chapter 11. These are the two laws, corporate laws, under which the companies are liquidated. So if you are in trouble, you will sell your surplus assets. You will file for bankruptcy. You will renegotiate your debt contracts with the bankers. You will get liquidity, but these are the bad sources of liquidity. These are the primary sources. Short-term funding, credit arrangements with the suppliers, line of credit, revolving line of credit, good cash flow management. So the example of secondary source of liquidity, negotiating debt contracts, A is the right answer. Next, an appropriate cash management strategy for a company that has seasonally high need for cash prior to the holiday shopping season would least likely include what? Like holiday season, like in near Christmas, company needs more cash. So in such a situation, when company is in need of high cash just before holiday seasons, which of these is least likely to be used as a source of finance? Least likely. Allowing short-term securities to mature without reinvestment. You have short-term securities and you allow them to mature near the holiday season, maybe near 20th of December, 15th of December. So these securities will meet your liquidity needs. This is a good source. We are looking for the one that is least likely to be used. Investing in US Treasury notes at other times of the year because they are highly liquid. Now, this is a little debatable. Treasury notes have maturities of between 2 to 10 years. Thus, having maturity longer than what our cash requirements are, it's not suggested. As we discussed in the previous lecture, that your current requirements must be met through current assets. These long-term investments will take time to mature, will put you in cash or difficult liquidity position. This is not recommended. Borrowing funds through bank line of credit, yes, you can arrange a bank line of credit, and whenever there is a surge of cash needs, so you can use this arrangement with the banker. So A and C are recommended because they are easily available, but these are long-term investments and not readily convertible into cash. So that makes B to be the correct option. Investing in US Treasury notes at other times of year because they are highly liquid. T-bill will be fine, but T-notes, they have maturity up to 2 to 10 years. Next, a firm has average days of receivables outstanding of 22 compared to an industry average of 29. In your firm, in your company, your customers pay on 22nd day. That is the average payment period. Your customers pay you on average of 22 days, whereas the industry average is 29. An analyst would most likely conclude what? Your customers are paying you more frequently. Your customers pay you on 22nd day, whereas in the industry in which you are operating, the average time is 29 days. Now, which of these is the correct option? What's most likely conclusion you can draw? We can conclude that the firm has better credit control than its peer companies. Forcing your customers to pay you quickly than the industry average, this is not good. If you force your customers to pay you quickly, they will go to your competitors. You might lose customers, you might reduce your sales might be lowered. This is not suggested. Forcing your customers to pay quickly, your customers will run away from you. So we cannot assume that the stricter credit control will reduce the collection period. Not recommended, not right option. The firm may have credit policies that are too strict. Yes, you are forcing your customers to pay quickly than the industry average. This is the industry average, and you are asking your customers to pay you quickly. This is a strict credit policy, and which of course have negative consequences for the company. Why not C? The firm has lower cash conversion cycle than its peer companies. We cannot conclude from these just 22 days, because in order to calculate cash conversion cycle, you need account receivable turnover in days, you need inventory turnover in days, right? And you need account payable turnover in days. So we just from account receivable turnover, we can't assume. This is too much assumption. We cannot conclude this. So this is incorrect. So the correct option is B. You need to weigh every option before you go for the right answer. That's B. Right, next. Compared to the prior period, a firm has greater days of receivables. Like for example, first your customers used to pay you after 20 days, now they take 30 days to pay you. Now if the customer delay paying you, the effect on the cash conversion cycle and operating cycle would be, operating cycle is simply equal to account receivable turnover in days plus inventory turnover in days. Cash conversion cycle is account receivable turnover in days plus inventory turnover in days minus accounts payable turnover in days. So if your account receivable turnover has increased, let's say from 20 to 30, it will increase your operating cycle and it will also increase your cash conversion cycle. So both of these would increase. So without doubt, we get the right answer. It is C. The quick ratio, also called the asset test ratio, it is equal to current assets less your inventory less your prepayments. Remember, sometimes you omit prepayments. Prepaids are also deducted from current assets in order to find your quick assets or liquid assets. So current assets minus inventory minus prepayments upon current liability. This is called your quick ratio or asset test ratio. The quick ratio is considered as a more conservative measure of liquidity than the current ratio. Yes, because current ratio is equal to current assets upon current liability. So we deduct inventory and prepayments in order to calculate quick assets, and then we calculate the quick asset as a fraction of current liability. It is a more conservative ratio. So what is specifically excluded? Because the quick ratio excludes inventories which are not necessarily liquid. Correct. This is a correct statement. Short-term marketable securities, no. Only inventory and prepayments, wrong. Account receivables, no. Account receivables are a part of current assets as well as quick assets. So B, C are not correct. Only A is, and A it is. Rendox Industry has the following investment policy statement. Rendox Industry has the following investment policy statement. In order to achieve safety and liquidity, these two things we need when we make investment. Safety and liquidity. We want to invest our short-term investment in those investment avenues that are safe and that are liquid. We can liquidate whenever we want. So in order to achieve the safety and liquidity necessary in the investment of excess cash balances, the CFO or his designee, the one who assigns to his subordinate, may invest excess cash in 30 days US Treasury bills or in banker acceptance with maturities of less than 31 or less than 30 days of certificate of deposit, and where the credit rating of the issuing bank is A+ or higher. Apparently you are very specific that the CFO and the person under him, treasurer or any of his associates, he should invest the surplus cash only in these investment securities. So what do you say about this investment policy statement? Is it appropriate? It is inappropriate because it is too restrictive. You should give some flexibility to the CFO, the treasurer who should make the right decision. A policy statement should focus on meeting the specific safety and liquidity needs. It should also allow the flexibility. Some discretion must be given to the treasurer to make investment. This is too restrictive. This is the right option. It's too restrictive. It's inappropriate because both bankers' acceptance and certificate of deposits are illiquid. No, they are highly liquid investments. We discussed yesterday. Wrong. They are appropriate because these are all safe, liquid securities. Yes, they are safe and liquid, but we need to give some level of discretion to our investment manager as well. We can't just tie him up where he has no flexibility in making decisions. So that is incorrect. So the right option is that the policy is too stiff, it's too restrictive. A is the right answer. Which of the following forms of short-term financing is typically used to facilitate international trade? Overdraft and line of credit, this is available locally to all firms. Commercial paper, available to large firms that have good credit history. Yes, it's the banker acceptance that is used in international trade. Let's say we have an exporter based in Pakistan and we have a US-based importer. The US-based importer wants to buy something from Pakistan-based exporter. They don't know each other, so they can't trade. They don't trust each other. So the Pakistani exporter who wants to sell, he will ask the US importer to open a letter of credit in his favor. So this importer will go to his bank, let's say Wells Fargo. I like this name, by the way. This is the issuing bank. The bank that will issue the letter of credit in favor of Pakistani exporter, and this bank will correspond with the Pakistani-based bank called the advising bank. Under the specific letter of credit arrangement, goods will be delivered to the US importer. Now the Pakistani exporter must meet certain terms specified in the letter of credit. When those terms have been specified, the Pakistani exporter, he will draw a document which could be a bill of exchange, which could be a promissory note, which could be a draft, whatever specifically required, specifically exactly required in the letter of credit. If there is just a little deviation, the documents are rejected. So make sure specifically what is needed. So those documents under the LC are to be approved by the issuing bank. Once approved for the payment, once accepted by the payment, they become banker acceptance. They become highly liquid investments and they can be discounted in order to gain liquidity. So remember, banker acceptance is one of the ways that are used to facilitate international trade. So that makes A to be the correct option. Compared to the prior year, Chart Industry has reported that its operating cycle has remained relatively stable. Operating cycle has remained stable, let's say, in all these three options, while its cash conversion cycle has decreased. Your operating cycle is the same. Let's say represented with this red color circle. This is your operating cycle and it is of the same size because it is relatively same in all these conditions. But it says that your cash conversion cycle has decreased. What is cash conversion cycle? It's operating cycle minus accounts payable turnover in days. If you deduct account payable turnover in days from your operating cycle, you get your cash conversion cycle. So it says that your cash conversion cycle has shrunk. Let's see in which of these cases account payable is being delayed. That will result in lower cash conversion cycle. First, it says that improved inventory turnover. If inventory turnover has improved, it will affect operating cycle and conversion cycle in the same way, so there won't be change in cash conversion cycle. We are looking for an arrangement in which cash conversion cycle becomes shorter. So if your inventory turnover has improved, it will affect both, not one. The question says operating cycle is of the same length, but your cash conversion cycle has shortened. So this is not helping. It is affecting both. The firm is relying more on suppliers for short-term liquidity. The firm has increased its account payable turnover. When you increase your accounts payable turnover in days, your cash conversion cycle will be shortened. For example, you take 60 days to hold your inventory in the stock. Your average account receivable turnover in days is, let's say, 50. 60 plus 50, 110. And out of this, you take 70 days to pay to your supplier account payable. You're using your accounts payable, your supplier as a source of finance. Resultantly, as you can see, your cash conversion cycle will be much shortened now. Just 40 days. So this is the reason. When you delay paying to your suppliers, your cash conversion cycle will be shortened. You will have surplus liquidity. Your cash conversion cycle will be shorter in days. This is the right option. Is paying its bills for raw materials more rapidly. When you're paying your bills more rapidly, your cash conversion cycle will like, for example, instead of paying after 70 days, you're paying on every 10th day. 60 plus 50 less 10. See, you have your cash conversion cycle 100 days. This way, the cash conversion cycle will become longer. Wrong. So it means the correct option is option B. When you delay paying to your supplier, you will have more cash at your disposal, which is good for your liquidity. Next question, number 15. Liquidating short-term assets and renegotiating debt agreements are best described as what? When you renegotiate the loan arrangements with your banker, it means you are in trouble. You are in liquidity trouble. You are in trouble. So these sources of finance which you ask for in trouble, they are called the secondary sources of finance. Let us discuss something about pulls and drags on liquidity. What are pulls? Pulls and drags on liquidity. These are very bad strategies for working capital management. Pull on liquidity means, pull or drag on liquidity means you collect your cash as late as possible and you pay as frequently as possible. Pull on liquidity means you, instead of paying to your supplier on 30 days, you pay in 10 days. This is pull on liquidity, which is bad. And drag on liquidity means your customers should pay you in 60 days, but you ask them for payment after 100 days, which is very bad. You're doing totally opposite to what you should be doing. You're delaying your collections and you're speeding up your payments, and you will definitely be in trouble. This is a very bad approach. Pulls and drags on liquidity. This will put you in trouble, in liquidity crunch. Not recommended. This is, of course, in a troubled business, will sell surplus assets, renegotiate debt agreements with the bank. This is called secondary source of finance. And primary sources of finance for liquidity, I said, these are the sources called, like, you get credit from your suppliers, lines of credit, revolving line of credit, committed or uncommitted line of credit, right? So these are primary ones. The examples given here for the secondary ones, so that's why B is the right answer. B is the correct option. Next, which of these two statements are correct or incorrect? In recent staff meeting, David Hurley stated that analysts should understand the financial ratios mean little by themselves. Financial ratios themselves do not mean anything unless they are compared with something. He's right. He advised his colleagues to evaluate financial ratios carefully. During the discussion, he made the following statements, and we need to see which of these statements are correct. Statement 1. A company can be compared with others in its industry by relating its financial ratios to industry standards. Norms mean standards. That is perfectly fine. However, care must be taken because many ratios are industry specific, but not all ratios are important to all industries. That is correct. Some ratios are specific to some industries, some for other industries. So in order to make good comparison, you can compare your company's performance with the overall industry standard. This is a correct statement. It's a correct statement. The first one is correct. What about the second one? Comparing a company to the overall economy is useless. How can you say that? If the economy is doing well, your ratios will be good. When the economy is failing bad, you will have depressed ratios, depressed liquidities, depressed profitabilities. So comparing a company to the overall economy is useless because overall business conditions are constantly changing. Specifically, it is not the case that the financial ratios tend to improve when the economy is strong and weaken during the recessionary time. This is true. This is not wrong. He says it is not the case. In fact, it is the case. Financial ratios are significantly impacted by the economic circumstances, economic confidence, business confidence. If the economy is booming, the ratios would be, liquidity will be high, you will have more profitability. But during recession, like these days, COVID-19, COVID-20 now, maybe COVID-21, things will be bad. So this statement is wrong. Economy does affect, economic circumstances, they do affect the profitability ratio, liquidity, and market ratio. So the first statement is correct and the second is incorrect, so that makes A to be the correct option. Which of the following factor is most likely to cause a firm to need short-term financing? In which of these cases would we need short-term financing? A. Return of principal from maturing investments. We had made some investment of $100 million in some bonds. Now the money is being returned, the principal is being paid back. We have significant liquidity, no problem at all. When your principal investment is being returned, you have sufficient liquidity. We don't find any problem here. In which of these cases we need money? Here we don't need any cash at all because our principal is maturing, we'll have sufficient cash. Shorter cash conversion cycle than the industry average. Let's say the industry average is 50, but your cash conversion cycle is just 21 days. Means you are generating cash at much faster rate than the industry average. You will have no liquidity problem in this case. Last, C. Operating cash inflows that fluctuate seasonally. Since there is fluctuation in the cash flows, your inflows and outflows might mismatch. Sometimes your outflows are more than the inflows. In those months, you need some help from the bankers. So you may have to arrange some short-term borrowing, maybe some line of credit or some other committed line of credit with the banker. So this is the situation where you need some short-term funding to make for the shortfall that you may have in certain months. So that makes C to be the correct option. Next, which of the following is least likely an indicator of firm's liquidity? Inventory turnover. How many days do you take to sell your inventory, or how many times in 1 year do you replenish your inventory? It's a measure of liquidity. The more number of times you sell your inventory, more cash you will have. It is the measure of liquidity. Cash as a percentage of sale. Yes, cash as a percentage of sale. Cash itself is a measure of liquidity. Yes, it is a measure of liquidity. Both of these are. Amount of credit sale. We can't say whether a business has a high credit sale, so it will have low cash balances, or a business that has low credit sales may have high cash balance. We can't say that. We can't say that because credit sales, maybe some businesses have quite significant sales, and since the sale is high, so the credit sale will be comparatively higher. So just by looking at the credit sales, we can't say that whether the business has liquidity issues or not. Maybe your 10% of sales are credit, and this 10% could be $100 million because the business is big. So this alone is not enough to conclude that the business might have liquidity issues. But these two are. Credit sale itself is not a measure of liquidity unless it is compared with some suitable numbers or we have more data to draw a conclusion. So that makes C to be the correct option. An investment policy statement for a firm's short-term cash management function would least appropriately include what? Investment policy statement for our treasury function, where we use our surplus cash to generate some returns. So which of these must not be included? Least likely to be included. Procedures to follow if the investment guidelines are violated. Yes, this must be included. Yes. If the guidelines are violated, what are the penal actions to be taken against those who violated the investment policy statement. Is true. A list of permissible securities. No. Give your investment manager some leverage. Give him some discretion. Give him some flexibility that he makes decision on his own given the market circumstances. So don't restrict him. Don't bind him. Let him make the decision himself. This is inappropriate. Information on who is allowed to invest corporate cash. Who is the one who will make the investment decision? Is it CFO or someone designated by him, or is it the treasurer, or is it the chief investment officer? Who is specifically responsible for investing? This must be included, but list of permissible securities is binding or restricting the investment manager, and he will lose the leverage he needs to have in order to generate returns. So B is inappropriate. B is not what we should expect in investment policy statement. A 30 days bank certificate of deposit, commercial paper, and I said just this bond equivalent basis is a good way in which we have various types of short-term investments, A, B, C, D, and they all have different maturities, they have different rates, so we can use this base to convert their returns in a comparable basis, and then we can decide which one is better. So we have a 30-day bank certificate of deposit. It has a holding period yield of 1%. What is the annual yield of the CD on bond equivalent basis? So bond equivalent yield is equal to the holding period yield, that's 1%, multiplied by the days in year, divided by the periods to maturity, that's 30. If you simplify this, 1% times 365 upon 30, you don't need to convert percentage into 100. You'll get your result. It's 12.17. That makes C to be the correct option. Which of the following sources of liquidity is most reliable? As the word says, uncommitted line of credit. Uncommitted line of credit means the bank may refuse to provide the credit if the firm is in trouble, if the firm's conditions change. So this is not reliable. Committed line of credit, even it is committed, but it is for a specific period of time, mostly less than 1 year. So committed line of credit is basically an overdraft as it is now outside the US. So it is not reliable as much. But revolving line of credit, typically it is for a longer term than the uncommitted line of credit and committed line of credit. So it's a more reliable source of finance. It could extend me to many years into the future. It is rolled over every year. We can renegotiate the bank contract and then it goes on and on and on. Right? So this is more reliable. B is the right option. Revolving line of credit. Altern Industry will have better liquidity than its peer groups of companies if its average trade payables are lower. If your average trade payables are lower, it means you are frequently making them payment. You are paying them again and again and again after few days. When you pay your accounts payable frequently, you have lower accounts payable, you will be in trouble, your liquidity will be low. This is not a good approach. Delay as much as you can without damaging your relationship with your vendors. Your receivable turnover is higher. Yes, your receivables pay you more frequently. Your receivables turnover is higher than the industry, means your receivables pay you more frequently than the industry average. So you will have better liquidity than the groups in your company. Quick ratio is lower. Having a lower quick ratio means you have less quick assets compared to your liability. So this is bad. So if your receivable turnover is higher than the peer group, you are in much better position. But if these two A and C are there, then it means your conditions as for liquidity is worse off than your peers or your competitors in the industry. So that makes B to be the correct option. An analyst computes the following ratios for Iridescent Carpeting Incorporated and compares the results to the industry average. Current ratio is 1.8 times, R is 2.3, which is good. Net profit margin, we are doing not good. Return on equity, not good. Debt to equity, our leverage is better. Industry average is quite high, but we are doing better than industry. Times interest earned, this is the interest rate coverage, also called how many times we can pay interest out of our remaining earnings. So this is better. What exactly do we need to look for? Based on the above data, which of the following can analysts conclude? Iridescent Carpeting, this one, has better short-term liquidity than its competitors. Liquidity is measured through current assets upon current liabilities, called current ratio, and it definitely is better than the industry. This is true. Your liquidity is better than the industry average. This company is most likely a younger company than its competitor. There is absolutely no reference to age of the business. We can't say. This is totally a ridiculous option. Company has stronger profitability than its competitors? No. Profitability as regard to net profit margin and return on equity is lower than the industry average, so we can't say that. This is not correct. So the correct option is A, and as you can see, A is your result. Pierce Motor Company has an operating cycle of 150 days. Operating cycle means your accounts receivable turnover and your inventory turnover. It takes about 150 days for your inventory to sell the time you take, your customers take to pay you back. This is called your operating cycle. If you deduct your accounts payable period from this, you get cash conversion cycle. So PS Motors Company has an operating cycle of 150 and cash conversion cycle of 120. And the difference between these two, as you can see, is 30. It means you take 30 days to pay to your supplier. While Dunhill Motor, let us write this in comparative terms. We have two firms, PS Motors and Dunhill. We have been given the operating cycle OC. It's 150 for Pierce and it's 140 for Dunhill. Cash conversion cycle, I write CCC. It is 120 for Pierce and it's 125 for Dunhill. So the difference between these two, 40 and 15. This gives you your accounts payable turnover in days, or accounts payable payment period, average payment period. It means Pierce pays its suppliers after 40 days, whereas Dunhill pays more frequently after 15 days, right? Because the difference between operating cycle and cash conversion cycle is your account payable payment period. So what we can conclude, average days of inventory for Dunhill is less than for Pierce. Data doesn't support. We have been given the full operating cycle. We can't split it up. Wrong. We can only conclude about account payable. We can't say about your inventory or accounts receivable separately. Average days of payable for Dunhill is less than for Pierce. It takes 15 days to pay. More frequently, it takes 40. This is true. Average days for payable for Dunhill is lower than the Pierce. That's correct. We don't need to look any further. B is the right option. Now, a company has just received 5 million shipment from a supplier. Its terms of trade are 215 net 30, means if you pay within 15 days, you are given 2% off, 2% discount. Otherwise, you will have to pay the full amount on 30th day. It has access to a line of credit with an annualized cost of 9%. Right? The best short-term financing strategy is to do what? What should we do? Let us first calculate the cost of not taking discount. One is the CMA approach, another is the CFA approach. Of course, CFA approach is more accurate. In CMA, what we do, the formula we use is we take the discount percentage upon 100 minus discount percentage into days in year, which are normally taken as 365. Upon payment period is 30 days. And the discount period is 15 days. So if you calculate this, plug the numbers, discount is offered 2%, 2 upon 100 minus 2%, 98%, multiplied by 365, divided by 30 minus 15, 15. Now if you simplify this, 2 by 98 times 365 upon 15, it will give you 49.65%. If you delay the payment to your supplier and pay on 30th day, it's like as if taking a bank loan at 49%. This is a very huge rate of interest. Huge rate of interest. So you must pay within 15 days or on 15th day. Delaying the payment by next 15 days is like borrowing from a bank at this much huge cost. This is called cost of not taking discount. Right? Now let us do this for the CFL level 1. For this, we have a formula that takes in an annualized approach, 1 plus discount percentage upon 100 minus discount percentage, that is 98%, raised to the power 365 upon days for the payment and the discount period, 30 minus 15, that is of course 15. Whatever the result comes, you need to deduct it from 1, and this will give you your final cost of not taking discount. So it's going to be 2 upon 98 plus 1 raised to the power 365 upon 15. And from this you need to deduct 1. It gives you 63.49% expressed in percentage. So cost of note taking discount in CMA would be 49.65 and cost of note taking discount is 63.49. Let's say borrowing money with this high interest rate from the bank. Would you ever take loan at this rate? Of course not. So if this is such a high rate, then you should avail discount and you should pay on 15th day. Not immediately. He has given you 15 days. Enjoy the 15 days period. Enjoy the 15 days period. Pay on the last date of discount. Pay on 15th day. Because if you do not pay on 15th day, as per CMA, the annual cost of note taking discount is 49%. And as per CFA, the annual cost of note taking discount is 63.49%. It's huge. Super huge. It's much more even than the rate charge on your credit card. So you must pay on the 15th day, that is C. Roble company which pays no dividends carries out 3-for-5 reverse split. 3-for-5 means 5 shares are being converted into 3 new shares. This is called reverse split. Normally what you will see, a single share is broken down into smaller parts. This is called split. Sometimes, like for example, you have a $100 share part. It is being split into 10 $10 shares. This is called split. Sometimes it is done in reverse order. We take small denomination shares and we combine them to make a larger share. Just like you have a 1000 rupee note, you convert it into 10 100 notes, or this is called split, or you can do it in reverse order. You have 10 $100 or 100 rupees note, you convert them into 1000 rupees, right? This is called reverse split. This requires no journal entry. It will affect your equity in no way. It is just that the denomination, just like you have 1000 rupees, whether it's a single currency note or whether you have 10 currency note of 100 rupees each, you still have 1000 in both cases. So if it is done, how will this transaction affect Roble's forecast for its net cash position? It has no effect on cash at all. It is simply the shares are being, denomination of share is being changed. It's not that you are selling share. There is no cash involved. No effect on short-term forecast, but less net cash. There is no less or more cash. There is no impact at all. More net cash, no. No effect, because this transaction does not affect future cash flow. It is simply that a larger share, smaller shares are being converted to a single large denomination shares. It will involve no cash inflow or outflow. Right, so that makes C to be the correct option. In reviewing the effectiveness of companies' working capital management, an analyst has calculated operating cycle and cash conversion cycle for the past 3 years. Operating cycle from 55 to 60 and from 60 to 62 is increasing, not good. And your cash conversion cycle 27 to 30 to 32, it is not good as well. Your cash conversion cycle is increasing in size, your operating cycle is increasing in size. So what can we conclude? The trend in the operating cycle and cash conversion cycle most likely indicate slower collections of receivables. Slower collection from receivables. Improve liquidity, this is impossible. Liquidity, when the cash conversion cycle and operating cycle, they are increasing in number of days, it is deteriorating liquidity, not improving. Now there might be a conflict between A and C. Let us see if the difference between operating cycle and cash conversion cycle is taken. It represents the time that you take to pay to your accounts payable. So 55 less 27 gives you 28 days. It means you take 28 days to pay to your supplier. Then you increased it to 30. Then you raised it to 30 again. 30. So stretching payable. Yes, you have stretched your payable in 2006, 2007, then stopped. So apparently it looks that we first used to pay after 28 days. Then we started paying up after 30 days. So it's not a continuous stretch. There was a little stretch of 2 days, then it stopped. So this is not the right option also. What we can conclude that slower collection of receivables, since we are delaying our payment collection from our customers, resultantly your cash, your operating cycle is increasing in number of days. This is the only conclusion we can draw. Slower collection from your account receivable. This is what will result in in longer cash operating cycle as well as longer cash conversion cycle. Both are becoming longer. It means your receivables are paying you less frequently now. A. Slower collection for receivables. Which of the following sources of short-term liquidity is considered reliable enough that it can be listed in footnotes to firm's financial statement? Which of these sources of finance is reliable? That's the question. Which of the following sources of finance is reliable? Revolving line of credit, as we discussed, is a line of credit that is typically for a longer period of time, and it involves an agreement with the banker that this arrangement can be rolled over into the future period up to a specific amount. This is more reliable. Factoring agreement, this is when you have receivables, you sell your receivables to overcome your short-term liquidity. So factoring of receivables, it is a source of finance, but this is not a very reliable one. We are looking for the one that can be listed on footnotes. So factoring arrangement, we don't normally list on the footnotes because this is not a reasonable or reliable enough source of finance. Only revolving line of credit amongst these is. Uncommitted line of credit, no. Uncommitted means the banker can refuse to lend money anymore because maybe the company's conditions have deteriorated. So the only source of finance that is reliable and can be reported in the footnotes of financial statement is this one, dependable one, A. Revolving line of credit. The condition that occurs when company disburses cash too quickly, when you pay your suppliers too quickly, paying it quickly, like first you used to pay to your suppliers after 30 days, now you have started paying after 12 days. Of course you won't, but if you do that, this will put your liquidity in trouble. So paying your payables quickly, this is called pull on liquidity. First you used to make the payment after 30th day, now you're paying after every 12th day. This is pull on liquidity. Liquidity will be taken away from your business. Drag on liquidity is that first you used to collect from your receivables after 45 days. Now they take about 63 days to pay you. Drag on liquidity means your customers are paying you less frequently now. They take more time to pay you. So pull on liquidity, bad, because first you used to pay after 30 days, now after 12 days. And drag on liquidity, your customers are delaying the payment. This is bad as well. The question specifically asked, the condition that occurs when company disburses cash too quickly. Disburses mean pays too quickly, stretching the company's cash reserves. It is pull on liquidity. That makes A to be the correct option. Yields on firms' investments in short-term securities for comparison purposes. For comparison purposes, bond equivalent yield. Which formula have we been using repeatedly? Is holding period return or holding period yield multiplied by 365 upon days to maturity. So that's what we have been using frequently. This is what we use to compare different short-term investments so as to decide which one to invest into. So that makes A to be the correct option.
Question number 31. A firm is choosing among three short-term investment securities. Security 1, a 30-day US Treasury bill with a discount yield of 3.6%. Security 2, a 30-day banker's acceptance selling at 99.65 of the face value. And a 30 days time deposit with a bond equivalent yield of 3.65. Based only on these security yields, the firm would select which of these? So in order to compare these investments, we will have to use some preferred basis, so that the preferred basis in this case is the bond equivalent yield. Let us calculate for all these three securities and then we'll decide which of these is the best. First take this 3.6% times 30 upon 360 means 0.3%. Now we need to convert this into the bond equivalent yield percentage. For that, what we will do, take 0.3 upon 100 minus 0.3, that will be 0.997 multiplied by 365 and divided with 30. It will be equal to 3.661. This is the bond equivalent yield. Then for security 2, 99.65% out of 100 means it's 0.35. So bond equivalent yield will be 0.35 upon 99.65 multiplied by 365 upon 30, it will be 4.273%. Security 3, 3.65%. And it is already in the bond equivalent yield form, so it means this versus this means gives us the best return is the security 2, banker's acceptance. That makes A to be the correct option. Next, question number 32. A firm records the following cash flows on the same day. 250 million from debt proceeds, it's an inflow, plus 100 million funds transferred to a subsidiary, that is an outflow. 125 million in interest payment, it's an outflow. 30 million in tax payments, it's an outflow. So the net daily cash position, when we have 250 less 100, 150 less 125, that's 25 million positive. And from this 25, interest payment of 30 million means negative 5. So overall, there are more outflows than inflows. So cash position, net daily cash position has worsened. That makes B to be the correct option. Next, the average number of days that it takes to turn raw materials into cash proceeds is a firm's operating cycle. True. Inventory turnover ratio, it's an activity measure. It calculates how many times your inventory is resold or replenished in 1 year. Receivable turnover calculates after how many days do your average receivable pay you, or how many times your average receivables pay you in 1 year. So it was the description basically of operating cycle. That makes A to be the correct option. Next, a result that is most likely to give a financial manager concern, that is firm's credit policy, may have become too lenient. So lenient credit policy means that we allow a comparatively longer collection period. We allow a greater period for payment to our account receivable. So a weighted average collection period has increased. Increase in our credit period will result in liquidity issues. So this is a cause of concern to the financial manager. This is good. Inventory turnover has decreased considerably. Decrease in inventory turnover is bad, but that may not be directly affected by the credit terms. So it's not entirely we can connect it with the credit terms. Receivables turnover has increased significantly. This is good. The cause of concern is that weighted average collection period has increased. Our average customer now takes more time to pay us, and this would result in some liquidity issues in the firm. So A is the right answer. Next question. A banker's acceptance that is priced at $99,145, that's the purchase price, 72 days to maturity, and $100,000 is the face value. Now, money market yield greater than its discount yield. Let's move in the reverse order. You have the formulas, plug in the values, and you can calculate yourself. Remember, in the reverse order, discount yield greater than its bond equivalent yield. Wrong. Bond equivalent yield is always greater than discount yield. B. Bond equivalent yield greater than its effective annual yield. Wrong. Effective annual yield is always greater than the bond equivalent yield. So if option B and C are incorrect, then it has to be A. Money market yield greater than the discount yield. Correct. Money market yield is greater than the discount yield. You can plug in the numbers and you can calculate yourself. Take time, but you can verify that A is the correct option. Next, the least appropriate security for investing short-term excess cash balances would be least appropriate. Bank certificates of deposit, CODs, it's a good one. It's a good short-term marketable security. Time deposits, they are good as well. But preferred stock is normally not considered as a good investment for investing your short-term cash. So that makes B to be the correct option. A large credit-worthy manufacturing firm would most likely get short-term financing by, remember we are talking about a large credit-worthy manufacturing firm. So how would it raise short-term financing? Factoring its receivables? No. that's cheap. Means that's not what larger organization would go for. Entering into an agreement for committed lines of credit. Normally smaller businesses do that. Smaller businesses go for factoring of receivables. Yes, larger organizations with good credit history, good credit score, credit worthy, they go for issuing commercial paper. So B is the right option. Next, an analyst is reviewing the working capital portfolio investment policy of a publicly traded firm. Which of the following components of the policy is the analyst least likely to find acceptable? First of all, remember your investment policy should include the purpose, authorities, any limitations or restrictions, quality, and other items for the purpose of investment, short-term portfolio investments. Yes, there might be certain limitations placed, but your limitation section should include the types of investments that we can invest in and the types of investment that are not acceptable for investment. So we should only have the categories of securities in which we can invest or not invest. There is no specification of such issuer securities will not be invested in. So there is no such specification. We categorize securities rather than specific issuer security. That's an important point to be remembered. So investment must have an A1 rating from S&P or an equivalent rating from another agency. True, this could be included. Authority for selecting and managing short-term investments rests with the firm's treasurer and any designee selected by the treasurer. Correct. Investment in US T-bills, commercial papers and bank CDs are acceptable unless issued by Stratford Bank. We do not go for such specifications. So this is least likely acceptable. That makes B to be the correct option. Next, question number 39. Pfluger Company's accounts payable department receives an invoice from a vendor with terms 210 net 30, means if the payment is made within 10 days, 2% discount would be given, else the payment must be made within 30 days or by the 30th days from the date of invoice. If Pfluger pays the invoice on its due date on the 30th day, the cost of trade discount given up, the cost of trade credit is closest to. Since you have given up the discount, you paid the amount on the due date, not within the discount period. So there is a cost of not taking discount. The cost of not taking discount is calculated using this formula: 1 minus discount percentage upon 100 minus discount percentage raised to the power 365, or the days in year to be considered upon the payment periods minus discount period, minus 1. If you simplify all of these numbers, you should get 44.6%. See, the cost of not taking discount is as if taking a loan for 30 minus 10, 20 days. So it's like taking a loan for 20 days at a rate of interest of 44.6%. It's a huge cost. If you do not take benefit of the discount, you give up the discount and make the payment on 30th day. So this money for 20 days has cost you 44.6%. It's a massive cost. So of course must be avoided at all costs, unless you can compare it with effectively with the bank rate. That's A is the right answer. Question number 40th. An example of a primary source of liquidity. Primary source of liquidity. When we say primary source of liquidity, as we have been discussing, primary source of liquidity is selling goods and services, collecting from your receivables, trade credit from vendors, lines of credit. These are the primary sources of short-term finance, short-term liquidity. So filing for bankruptcy, renegotiating debt agreements, these are secondary sources of finance, secondary sources of liquidity. Using of trade credit from vendors, this is the primary one. So that makes B to be the correct option. Next, with respect to inventory management, a firm with inventory turnover higher than the industry average can be expected to have better profitability as a result. There is no such guarantee can be given. It is not always true. It could be caused by low stock levels. Maybe your inventory turnover is higher because the denominator stock level is low, So this is not, we can conclude that the business inventory management is good and business would be more profitable. We can't conclude that. We can't say that. B, an increase in days of inventory on hand can be either good or bad inventory management. Good means, yes, avoid stock out. You keep certain stock with you so as to keep selling goods whenever the customer comes. The customer doesn't go empty-handed. Or it could be poor if you have stuffed lots of stock in your warehouses or maal bik nahi raha. You can't sell stock. There's lot of inventory that's slow moving. Obsolete stock that hasn't yet been written off. So it could be both good and poor depending upon the context. We just can't conclude whether the inventory turnover day is high or low and is it good or bad. Depends upon the context. We can't just conclude. So this could be a possible option. C, a decrease in inventory's days turnover on hand indicate that better inventory management and can lead to increased profits. Just like in A, we can't conclude that having higher turnover or lower turnover means business will be more profitable. So that most balanced one is B, which is of course context-based option. So B is the right option. Next, which of the following is not a limitation to financial ratio analysis? A firm that operates only in one industry, that is good for us. It's not a limitation. We can easily compare the result of the firm with the competitor, with the industry average. It's not a limitation. It's a limitation. B is a limitation. Differences in international accounting practices. There are many differences in the US GAAP and IFRS application. So this is one of the limitations of ratio analysis. We need to use judgments. So need to use judgment is also a limitation. So that makes A to be the correct option. A is not a limitation and hence our right answer. An analyst who is evaluating a firm's working capital management would be least likely to be concerned if the firm's operating cycle is shorter than that of its peers. That's good. That indicates good working capital management. You hold your stock for less period and you sell it and collect your money earlier. So a shorter operating cycle than your competitor is a good sign. It's not a cause of concern. Number of days of inventory is higher than that of its peer. This is a cause of concern, that why you're holding on to your inventory for a longer period. Total assets turnover is lower than the industry average. It means the assets are not being used efficiently. So B and C is a cause of concern. A is not. That makes A to be the correct option. Next, which of the following strategies is most likely to be considered good payables management? A, paying invoices on the last day to still get the supplier's discount for early payment. Yes, good. You are making the payment on the last day and still you're getting the discount. That's a good working capital management. Taking trade discounts only if the firm's annual return on short-term investments is less than the discount percentage. We do not compare the discount percentage with the return on the short-term investment. You have to annualize this discount. The cost of not taking discount has to be annualized. So we can't compare these two. We can't compare these two. This is incorrect statement. Paying trade invoices on the day they arrive. No, why? Why would you do that? Delay as far as you can without damaging your relationship with the vendors. So there's no advantage of making payment early. It will cause liquidity issues. So B, C are not correct. That makes A to be the right answer.